Well, hello again and welcome to another episode of the Hyperion Adventures Podcast. I'm Tom. As always, I'm with my wonderful, gorgeous, intelligent, very hardworking Disney transportation loving wife and co-host Michelle.
Easy for you to say.
I guess so.
Thank you, sweetheart. And hi, everybody.
So good to have you with us. Like I can struggle at saying Disney of all things. I only say Disney 800 times a week.
I know. A day.
It's true. It's true. Anyway, thanks for joining us today. We really appreciate it. We are recording this episode very, very early. So if you're wondering why we may be short on the Disney stories of the week, it's because we're recording this on July 30th, 2025, Wednesday, July 30th, 2025. It is dropping on Sunday, August 3rd, 2025, the usual time, but we are recording a little early. Why are we recording early, Michelle?
Well, we're recording early because we have big plans for this weekend. On Saturday, we're heading out on a Disney cruise. Yay!
That's right.
And we just have a couple other commitments at the end of this week that we have to take care of some things before that. So we are, as you said, we're recording early. A
lot of it is we're leaving here fairly early on Saturday morning, and we want to be sure that we have everything ready to go. And once we get this done, and that's something we don't want to be scrambling on Friday night as we're trying to get ready for this trip. And then we have to also throw together a podcast. So we decided to do a little bit earlier this week, at the, issues of not maybe having some of the Disney stories of the week, but that's why we tell you what the date is. So hey, why didn't they talk about this great big story that dropped on Thursday or Friday or whatever it might be? That's why.
Yeah. And I mean, also, we don't want to try to rush a podcast and not make it be good content. So we thought, all right, let's go a little earlier and do our best to make it more interesting, more fun.
You pretend like our podcasts are usually good content. I love that. Thank you very much for that.
It's the power of suggestion I'm trying to send out there.
It's good content. Trust us. We say it is. It must be. Again, thank you for joining us today. We really appreciate it. Now, we are the Disney podcast of positivity, and that means every week we like to focus on those high moments, those wonderful moments, those positive moments from the week that was. We do this every single week. We take a look back and call it my favorite thing from this week. And when we do this, we always start with Michelle because she's amazing, wonderful, all things good in the world. She does the best research. She definitely has the best lists. She also always has the very best my favorite thing from this week. So Michelle, what was your favorite thing from this week?
Well, it's still pretty early in the week, so some other fabulous things might happen. But for the week so far, I guess my favorite thing is that we did secure a place in the Run Disney 10K Springtime Surprise races for 2026. It's always questionable if we're going to be able to get it because it is something that's in high demand, but we were fortunate enough to secure that spot, and we're actually going to be going along with some other great friends.
Right, and we're very much looking forward to that, and that is also my favorite thing from this week. At this point, I have a feeling, and we'll probably talk about this more on the next episode, but there may be some things that also may be a bit bigger than that, but that was very important. And also my favorite thing from this week is that Michelle was the one who snagged us those spots and spots from a couple of our friends as well. And she did it all on her phone. That's how impressive Michelle is, that she was able to get this all together, worked out, get 4 spots at this Springtime Surprise 10K for next year. And now we're making our plans for how we're going to bound during that amazing race. The theme is going to be Tigger and Winnie the Pooh. And it's so funny because we thought, okay, we've got the Disneyland races on the book. We've got the princess races on the book. We're done. We're done for the year. Then Run Disney drops a Winnie the Pooh theme on us. And we're like, okay, I guess we're running Springtime Surprise as well. So thank you, sweetheart, for doing such a fantastic job of grabbing all those spots for us.
Well, thank you. I mean, my issue always with the phone is more, I have way more tendencies of having typos. And I mean, I spelt my name wrong. spelt somebody else's name wrong, one of our friends, and
But you corrected it.
I know, I did. I was able to fix it. It was funny how I found out that I had spelt my name wrong was when I was putting in the credit card information and it had this wrong.
Rejected.
And I was like, oh wait,
who is?
I know. It's like there's letters in there that definitely don't belong in my name. Yeah,
that's not on that card.
So, anyways, and you have to do it fast because you only have a few minutes, and it doesn't guarantee you until you make the final payment, and you got to put a lot of data in for the Run Disney races. So
it doesn't like it saves it for you, which
I
mean is unfortunate.
Right, right. But anyways, got it done.
Yeah, especially when you're. I mean, it's one thing it'll put some of your data in there, but when you're booking for other people, then it starts getting a little crazy because there's so much to throw in there, and for every single one of them.
Yeah, it's surprising how little data, like even how little it does bring in from your sign in. But anyways, we digress.
Yeah, but she did it. She did it, and we're going, and we're looking forward to seeing many of our Run Disney friends out there during that weekend. That's not till way off in next April, so we got plenty of time to prepare for that. But that's going to be fun. So yes, that's my favorite thing from this week as well.
Kind of wondered.
Yep. All right, let's go ahead and start moving on to this week's show. We do have a few things for you this week. We've got a great main topic, first and foremost. But then I also do have a couple Disney stories of the week for you, including there's a new Disney Cruise Line deal that you may want to look into if you're planning on sailing with a few extra family or friends over the next few months. Also, now, after you've saved that money on Disney Cruise, there is a brand new way to spend even more of it on a little bit of luxury on that Disney Cruise. I'll tell you what that is as well. But that's later. Let's go ahead and get to our very Disney transportation, if you know, main topic of the week. Well, Michelle, just a few weeks ago, we started this new series that we're really excited about, kind of looking at those little tidbits about the Disney parks, Disney stuff that if you know. That's right. It's going to be so much fun to go through this. I think today's topic is really, really interesting one that maybe some people take for granted a little bit.
I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, it's just something that is so much in many people's eyes in the background or functional, and you don't realize how much it is really drawing you in and being part of the storytelling of your trip to a Disney park.
Yeah, and that's what we're talking about today. We're talking about something that, if you know, we could just say today's topic, which is all about Disney transportation. And if you know how great Disney transportation is and how much it does make your trip that much more special and wonderful, and how many fantastic things. And there may be some things that you're just so busy getting from point A to point B, which it does very well, but they may just kind of go by the wayside, but they're all there to help make your Disney visit that much more magical. So this is basically just a love letter to the movement, the flow, those transitions that make that Disney experience so special for us, thanks to this Disney transportation.
Right. And what makes it different than any other transportation that you might seek out or need within your life. And the other thing maybe to point out here is we're really not going to be talking about attractions. We're talking, the forms of transportation, the way that Disney moves people along their time at the parks. And I think what we're going to do today is maybe kind of go like a day in the life of, and just shine a light, highlight those special things, those unique things about Disney transportation.
Right. While we may not be talking about attractions here, in some ways, some of these, yes, they're not attractions, but they could easily feel like attractions because that's how special they are and how they treat you while you're on there. So let's go ahead and get that day in the life of essentially started here. And we'll start right at the beginning of your Disney vacation or your Disney visit with your arrival. And, so when does your Disney vacation really start? Is it when you're standing in front of the castle? Is it when you're walking down Main Street, USA? Is it at the ticket gate? Or is it that way that you actually get there, one way, shape, or form, right, Michelle?
Right. I mean, I think when you're first arriving, let's say you're driving in, for example, and you're just so focused on, getting through the gate that you have to, either pay or scan in for parking and things like that, and where are you parked? And there's so much filling your mind at the time, you may not be yet in the mood of where you are. But hey, when you start, the first moment you're engaged with the Disney transportation, you're in that bubble. So like you said, it might not be that the castle is what first makes you feel like, we're on vacation, but actually getting on a tram.
Yeah, so that's it. It could start as early as, yes, you may think of, we're talking Disney transportation, you may start thinking about some of the other ways that you get, let's say, to Magic Kingdom, for example. But that could be just right after you get out of your car, depending on where you're parked at one of these enormous parking lots. And there's one of those amazing parking lot trams there that will escort you from nearby your car right there near the front gate. And just that experience is, if yeah, it could be special.
Exactly. I mean, it's like, when you're getting on the tram, yes, it's a function getting you from your parked car to the gates or whatever, but you right away get engaged. The cast members are usually really special in this form of transportation. And I know I hear fairly frequently, but things like when they're giving you the instructions of stay seated and blah, blah, blah. And like, if you lose anything while on this ride, like Elsa, just let it go, and again.
I didn't think you said that right. Let it go. Let it go.
That's right. And I have experienced some tram drivers or, the guide in the back as well, be very engaged in doing things like that. And it just makes it that much more special. I think that's when, again, your initial part of the day where it's starting to sink in that, hey, we're at Disney. We're getting ready for a fun day, and there's another very famous part of transportation on entering into the day of Disney, and that is when you're on the monorail.
Yes.
Please stand clear of the doors. Por favor, manténganse alejado de las puertas.
It's so great.
Yeah, I mean, that's just such a popular phrase. It's iconic. And I mean, I've seen people wearing T-shirts with that phrase on there. But again, that is where you're starting to feel that special time is approaching, that your day is really, you're in that bubble. You're going to have a good time. And it really, like I said, it's starting before you ever get through the gates.
The excitement's building. And again, so many of these are going to come back to, Michelle already mentioned them, the cast members. The Disney cast members always make the magic. And that includes on something like the parking lot tram. I mean, they already are bringing that magic to you when you just get out of your car and you're heading to the park. The fun's about to begin. And that's pretty special considering, it's probably the simplest form of transportation you're going to get.
Right. I mean, again, they could be just, dictating some rules and regulations of don't stand. If you drop something, leave it, tell us later. But no, they add something Disney to it to make it more enjoyable, to make it special and more unique.
Right. So let's move on from there. Now that you've parked your car, you've taken the tram basically up to whether it be the theme park itself or to someplace up near the gate of ticket and transportation, getting headed to Magic Kingdom, etc. Well, where do we go next? Well, now we kind of ride into the actual story itself. Maybe it's the Skyliner you're hopping on. Maybe it's the monorail. Maybe you prefer the boats. There are so many different ways to get there, and they're not just transportation. They are part of that show. It's almost like the trailers going into the actual movie.
That's true. That's a good analogy. I hadn't thought of that. I like that. I just know that it's always fun, and I know right now focusing on Ticket and Transportation Center, but when you get there and you're like, okay, let's see, which way is going to be faster? Is it going to be the monorail, but the lines are pretty long there? Should we go on the boat? It seems slower, but it really isn't, and it's just funny how you start having those feelings and those experiences of having fun just by trying to get to the front gate.
Yeah, for sure. And this could be, obviously, we know the monorail. Everybody loves the monorail. You get great views and you get to transport in as well. If you know. Yeah. Skyliner. Some people are very afraid of the Skyliner. Some people still will, to this day, will be afraid of the Skyliner. And I get it. Heights aren't always everything for everybody. But man, when you're soaring across some of these areas and you're hearing this spiel about what goes on, how Disney works with these areas, and you're going by the Caribbean beach resort and they're telling you all about that and stuff. That's all just amazing fun. And then meanwhile, you'll have the wind kind of whipping through there and you get that little breeze. It's part of that experience whether you're going to Disney's Hollywood Studios, whether you're going to Epcot or anywhere in between.
Right. Now I have a little tidbit, when you're talking about that, whether it's Skyliners, monorail or whatever, that is if you know. And that is whether you're talking about the music that's being played or the dialogue styles, So like if you're on the monorail, it's going to be telling you what's coming up, whether you're doing around the whole resort track or if you're doing fast track, And if you're doing buses, for example, and you're taking a bus from your resort to Hollywood Studios, the dialogue in there and the music that they play is all about Hollywood, and it starts to get you into that mood, again, you're riding into the story in essence, and I know we experience that a lot of times, especially over at Fort Wilderness Campgrounds, when you're taking the bus transportations to get from your campsite loop to, either the main bus terminal or down to Liberty Square or whatever. And you start to realize that the music playing, is very, kind of, banjos and what they're talking and describing. It's all part of the story. It's not just, okay, thank you for boarding, we're going to take you here. You're now part of that story.
Yeah, and I think that especially when you're talking about, if you're going to talk about the buses, the interior buses to some of the moderate resorts, and yes, Fort Wilderness, you do have some really nice places to stay there, but it is a moderate resort per se. So you have those interior buses, and those buses and the music and everything involved in it is so themed to where you're staying that it's amazing. But that includes also the buses to the actual parks themselves. Once you get to those locations and you start taking them, those can be very special as well. And yes, it all leads to getting you there. And then if you get an amazing, fantastic bus driver, you might even have a little bit more entertainment coming from them along the way.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't say it better, honey. Good job. Have you had any personal experiences with a form of transportation?
Well, I mean, lots of them. It's the buses. I think I always think about Fort Wilderness buses because you're getting this bus ride through this amazing resort and you're checking out different things as you go through. If you're there in the holiday season, as we always say, you got to check out the holiday lights there, and you can catch some of that when you're on the bus. It's better to walk through those loops, but you can catch them. But often during the day when you're going, especially in the mornings, if you're on one of those buses and maybe you're heading out to catch a boat to Magic Kingdom, or you're heading to connect with another bus to go to one of the other parks. Well, oftentimes this leads to the part of the whole Fort Wilderness thing is that there actually is wildlife you'll see out there. We've seen deer, we've seen wild turkeys running around out there, all sorts of birds, all sorts of different things. And that it feeds more into this whole encompassing thing of that you're in this kind of country living, even on this bus with the kind of bluegrass music playing in the background, right. And the names of the different loops that you go through, and it's so fun, and really, really enjoyed that aspect of it.
Right. And that's, kind of what we're saying at the beginning is if you're just, and it's not to say anybody's bad about this, but to really get even more from your experience is paying attention to these details related to transportation. Because yes, you could have a lot be going on, or, you're talking to family or whatever and not notice it. But it is there, and subconsciously it is still helping build your story. I remember, and this has nothing to do really with the transportation as much as my ridiculousness, but I was, I was pretty young, but I was able to still ride an attraction by myself. And I was trying to time getting on the Skyway. Those were when Magic Kingdom had Skyway. And I was trying to time it for the fireworks. And I thought I was really pretty smart and genius, and what you did at where the station I was at, you actually had to go into this little tower, like it was over by Fantasyland. And so once you were in that tower, you really couldn't see anything around until you got into the actual car. And I was like trying to time it, looking at my watch and everything. And I was like, all right, I was letting some people go up ahead of me and then trying to figure out, I better let some more. Well, by the time I did get onto it, the fireworks had already started. They were actually kind of almost done because there was something that made it slow down or stop right at that moment. And so I was in the tower hearing fireworks, but not actually seeing it. But I still do remember the Skyways transportation as being so unique, and, they weren't as smooth as the Skyliner, so there was a little bit of a thrill to it. But
yeah, definitely. I grew up obviously going to Disneyland, and there was a Skyway there as well. The difference in Disneyland Skyway that is really cool that I love, even though I'm not a great heights person, but I would go on it because it was enjoyable. And the best thing about it, it would go from Tomorrowland to Fantasyland. And in the middle of that is the Matterhorn. It actually would go right through the middle of the Matterhorn, and you could see the bobsleds going around. You might be able to see the Abominable Snowman in there, but just being able to kind of go through and it just talking about enhancing your transportation experience. You might just be trying to get from Tomorrowland to Fantasyland or vice versa. But going through the Matterhorn itself, this classic Disney attraction, just added so much to it. I understand why they don't have it running anymore, but that was really, really fun.
Yeah, that had to be. I knew that they had the Matterhorn as part of had an opening for those, and I just thought how cool that must have been to experience.
It was a blast. It was so fun, even when in your terror of being up there so high. There was something special about it, that's for sure, and I do miss it. I do miss it desperately.
I think more than in addition to being high is the fact that when it would hit some of those points that it would go through, and it would sway, and it was, I think that's
it would bounce a bit,
right?
It wasn't a big vehicle. It wasn't like, the Skyliner's fairly big.
Yeah.
It was a smaller kind of bucket almost. It felt very small sometimes in there.
But yeah, I mean, I think what we're really saying here is storytelling and bringing you into the story is all happening as your day is unfolding with the transportation, with any type of transportation that you're doing. They have the rafts that take you over to Tom Sawyer's. Well, it's Pirate Lair.
Yeah, they're at Disneyland, unfortunately, no longer at Magic Kingdom,
right.
But at Disneyland it still exists.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, a fun, unique way to get, again, from point A to point B. You're not just walking a trail and getting there or whatever. You're going over water on a raft.
Yes.
It's very storytelling, part of the theming of what you're going to be experiencing.
Yeah, and for anybody who knows Tom Sawyer or the story of Tom Sawyer and Huck Finn, it's very fitting to that because they built a raft within that book, movie, etc. And so you feel like you're a part of that just by transporting from one area over to the actual island itself.
Yeah.
It gives you that feeling. Yeah.
So,
really cool.
And again, the cast members there really make it special and themed, and so cool.
Yeah. So, and it's not just about the trip itself. It's also about the vehicles that you ride in and how whimsical they can be, we talked about the parking trams, the buses, the monorail, of course, all the different things that even if you're not necessarily on them, you can appreciate and enjoy from a distance in many ways, right, Michelle?
Right. Yeah. They're in the background, enhancing the storytelling. And one of the things I'm impressed more and more with the monorails, how they keep adding to that. Like now they have the lighting underneath the actual vehicle. So at nighttime they glow. It's really special. But like you're saying, that you don't notice unless you're not in it, but it's still part of your entertainment.
Yeah, it enhances your experience when you see a monorail go by and they're lit underneath and now on the sides as well. And then even like during some of the holiday seasons, like during Halloween, they changed that lighting to be kind of purple and orange to fill along with the Halloween parties as they're going on and so forth.
Right.
And on the holiday time, same thing. It just makes you feel you're more a part of it, and you're not even riding on them. You're just appreciating them from afar.
Yeah, exactly. Or maybe you're in the queue to get on them and you see it coming, it's just, again, it's enhancing your experience and you don't think about it.
Right.
But if you know.
And another thing is it's become a big joke on social media of like, somebody drops this. What bus wrap is Disney going to drop now? But I'm going to tell you what, I love the bus wraps. And yes, does it make up for somebody, is it a big attraction like somebody else? No, but I'll tell you what, I will absolutely point out to Michelle, oh, look, there's the Cocoa bus, or there's the Figment bus. And there, all these different, whenever we see a new one that we hadn't seen before, or we haven't seen very often, we will point them out and they make us smile because they're beautiful, fantastic. And yes, full of whimsy.
Yeah, we go fairly regularly there, but I can't think of a trip that we have gone that we didn't see a new wrap, that we didn't say, oh, wow, I've never seen this one before or whatever, because they are updating them, And you also have the character wraps on the Skyliner cars, too, that make it, again, a little more whimsy, a little more fun.
Which I think I enjoy more when you're not in one. Like I enjoy seeing them on the outside. When you're in one, I almost don't want the wrap because I do want to take in the ambiance around you. And sometimes the wrap sort of cuts that a little bit.
Right.
But I do love seeing them wrapped. So, I got to take it with a grain of salt of like, okay, it's fine. Even if we get in one, yes, I'd rather see the sights around as you're traveling away up high above all these areas. But because I love the wraps on the outside so much, I'll take it.
Right.
If I'm in one.
Agreed. I think another thing that makes them more personable, you're talking about character wraps around a bus or the Skyliner, is how they oftentimes will give names to some of their vehicles, like the trains. So they have the Lily Bell, they have the Walter E. Disney, there's several different ones, and same thing over at Disneyland. It's a continuation of the storytelling and maybe giving a little more life to that vehicle.
And every single boat has its own name, and many of those have been in service since near the time that Walt Disney World opened. And they all have their own little personalities. We've talked with some of the skippers of that boats, and they talk about how they love one boat more than another because of its personality and how they've kind of just bonded with that boat. And that makes it even that much more special. Those skippers on board those boats do amazing things too. Like I remember, and should be your story, I shouldn't be telling this, but your birthday just a couple years ago. And there was the captain of one of those boats. He heard it was your birthday. We were getting off, and he completely serenaded you right out in front of everybody with a very happy birthday.
Right. We're talking those small boats that are going from hotel to hotel, mainly the Magic Kingdom resorts that are there. And that one, I think he was taking us to the Polly, I think. Yeah. And I had it's my birthday because it was my birthday. And you're right, he did that. And I had forgotten too what you're saying about those boats have individual names. You don't see it, but the captains of those little boats will tell you about it, and they'll tell you. And it was amazing recently hearing about the fact that many of those boats have been there since the opening, since 1971. And that they've added a couple new ones and they feel they're not as good. Like if you got something that's working, keep it going because it's really special and does well. And I think that adds not only for the experience for the guests, but also for the cast members.
Yeah, I'm going to tell you right now, I love the monorail. I love the Skyliner. I love the bigger boats, the friendship boats, buses. I love the air conditioning in the buses. There's nothing like that air conditioning in some of those buses, especially after a hot day. But man, you put me in one of those little boats, one of the smaller boats, you going across either Seven Seas Lagoon or Bay Lake, and you get that little breeze going. It's my favorite form of Disney transportation. I may be spoiling something we should be talking about later, but that is something that if you know, it is amazing. And it just makes my vacation, even if we're just going from resort to resort, or if we're going to the parks or back from the parks, it's truly special to me. And one way that I will always look to travel to any of those destinations if I have that ability.
Right. I mean, I know that when you're hotel hopping, that the monorail seems to be a very efficient way to do it. And it probably is the most efficient, but not always. And these little boats that go, like to Fort Wilderness Lodge, Contemporary/Bay Lake, or the ones that go from the parks to, Grand Floridian or whatever. They're all great, and it's worthy of giving it a try because a lot of times you'll gain something from it, whether it's a new story or just a feeling. Like you said, the air in your face, if you're sitting up front or on the outside, it is special, and it is something that makes it more unique. One thing I wanted to bring up about the buses, we're talking about whimsy, but this past year, my sister Helen and I, we weren't taking buses because we were doing monorails or driving or whatever, but we did have to take a bus at one point. And I hadn't realized she hadn't been on any of the buses in years because she hadn't been to Walt Disney World in a long time. And she was like, wow, these are so clean on the inside and they're so comfortable. And she was like super impressed with the whole bus ride and everything. And I thought, wow, I take that for granted. I take for granted that I'm going to get on a Disney bus and it's going to be clean and comfortable and everything. And it's just, again, nice to shine light on something that makes it even more enjoyable.
And I think it's especially interesting because, when people are talking about the Disney transportation, the buses are probably put down near the bottom of the list as far as if you get to go to the parks or go to the resorts or whatever, what you're going to choose to make that trip. However, yes, you get a great bus driver. They're clean. They're spotless. The air conditioning, again, if that air conditioning, especially on a hot day like today, it is something special in there. And now they have places where you can plug in your phone and everything, get them charged up. They're pretty darn good. And I think they're extremely, extremely underrated. Now, and then you get a great bus driver. Fantastic. Want to also talk about, how we've talked so much about how the cast members have made your trips. And recently we were on the monorail, another form of transportation. And often the monorail drivers can help make your trip. Matter of fact, we had one. It was doing the resort loop. Going on there. And so we were regularly making stops. I think this might have been one when Scott was with us, possibly. I don't know. We did it a whole loop with this person there. And apparently, according to him anyway, he was the world's greatest monorail pilot. And we got to hear all about it and all sorts of interesting information. He was a hoot and a half, and he made us smile and made us laugh the whole time every time we stopped, and he would give the spiel again. And it would be a little bit different every time, but mostly focused on he's the world's greatest monorail pilot.
I know. He was amazing. You're totally right. The other thing that was fun about that experience, one, he was making us laugh, but he was making everybody laugh. And so you had that connection, even with strangers that you just happened to be on that monorail with, having that enjoyment all together as a group. And I felt like it made it so much more special.
Right. It was fun.
Because it was unity.
We were cracking up.
Yeah, everybody.
It was great. It just made us smile. And that's great. And some people might have found it annoying. Not me. I loved it.
Yeah.
I ate it up. I thought it was great, and I appreciate that cast member so much
Yeah,
for doing
exactly.
that. The world's greatest monorail pilot.
Yes.
So in that case, transportation is the attraction. As you're hearing about many of these things, there's so much. And, this all leads back to Walt's philosophy of movement, transition, how these systems basically set the stage for your fun day at the parks and resorts. Of course, Walt always forward thinking, ahead of his time. And yet that includes this transportation, right, Michelle?
Right. I mean, we've been on several tours, and one of the things that they really emphasize is that Walt, with his Hollywood background and everything, he really saw that every aspect of the park had a supporting role in your experience. And so that's why the conception of the transportation being part of that performance, part of that experience, and it had to definitely support that. And that's why you saw, for example, in Main Street USA, turn of the century kind of vehicles there, or going into Tomorrowland in a monorail. It was just all part of that. The story has to be supported by everything that the guests are going to experience. One of the things that is also a very, again, if you know, is for the Disneyland Railroad, at one of their stations, they have Morse code being played. You wouldn't notice it, right? You might hear it and you think, oh, okay, that's just some...
It's just ambiance.
But actually what it is they are, through Morse code, playing out the intro of Walt's opening day speech. So, I mean, it's just that attention to detail that you might not realize, you might not think of, that is supporting that experience for you. And it's kind of like that when you're watching a play or seeing a movie, that little details that might not be as noticeable are supporting the story.
Right. And we talked about it a little bit when we did our If You Know, You Know Disneyland deep cuts talking about the monorail going into Disneyland, taking the monorail going into Disneyland, and how when you ride that in, it sets the entire stage for you as you come in and you go in through Fantasyland and by the Matterhorn and over the Autopia and across the submarine area and see a glimpse of Tomorrowland. And there's the Matterhorn, and there's It's a Small World. And you get this wonderful setup of here's your exciting day. You're going in. That was an attraction part of your transportation into the parks. And the same could be said of Epcot. And I do believe part of the reason why you do that big sweeping loop around Spaceship Earth and in and see, yes, the World Showcase Lagoon and all that area around there, and then back again to let you off near the front, is because of Walt's original concept of Epcot. If you look at them, when you're talking about another form of transportation, the People Mover at Magic Kingdom, when you go through there, you get to see a piece of that model that they built that is a mock-up of what Walt wanted Epcot to be. And a lot of it is transportation, moving in from the suburbs into this big central state. And that is a lot of what that monorail does when it goes into Epcot. Yes, you kind of go back and out again, but it accomplishes that. You're going towards the center where everything is happening and you can see it all. And I really feel, I've never heard anybody say this, but I really feel that was like just a small piece of, yes, it's not Walt's exact vision of Epcot, but kind of getting that concept across the board when they put that in there.
That's a really good point. I hadn't thought about that, but that does make sense. And it definitely was part of what he was thinking. Like you said, he was very forward thinking, and he knew that mass transit was going to be more the way to go. The highways were still very new in his time frame or whatever, but he always connected himself with industry that was related to transportation. So whether it was, designing, monorails, even though they were in existence, really making them much more aerodynamic and everything, or looking at the Skyliners and he was into aerospace, and very involved in that. But like you said, he had big plans for Epcot, and this is definitely a very nice nod to what his thoughts were.
I think so. That's my feeling anyway. Again, I've never had anybody explain that and say that, but that's what I've always kind of thought. And it also feeds into the World's Fair concept that Epcot turned into, is that you get to kind of get that tour around and see where everything is, all these different areas that you might visit while you're at the World's Fair. It's such a perfect way to set the stage, both at Disneyland and at Epcot, for sure.
Right. And, like you were saying, being the attraction, part of the attraction, it seems like all forms of transportation, they are introducing to you what's ahead. Some of it may be like you're describing there, where you're seeing what's out there. And sometimes it's the dialogue of the recorded message of what's coming ahead. And, it helps get you, again, into knowing what to look forward to, or getting you excited about something, because it's just setting that stage for you.
Right. And we've already talked about, the sights of it all, of seeing some of these forms of transportation and how that adds to your day. We've talked about how you being inside them and the sounds and everything adds to your day. But it encompasses all senses, because some of the forms of transportation also affect you in ways that just may not necessarily notice, but they're always there in the background, oftentimes, sometimes visually, but oftentimes audibly as well. Right, Michelle?
Oh, absolutely. Like if you're walking down Main Street, USA, and you're hearing a car honking its horn for people who are taking some of those transportations, or the double-decker bus, which is an amazing form of transportation, or the train whistle,
I remember not that long ago. Do you remember when Tron was being built, and for a long period of time, extended period of time, the train was not running, and you would not get that whistle. And, understandably why, but it was like something was missing out there. And then the day that it started running again, I remember the first day we went back to near Magic Kingdom, and I think we were probably staying at Bay Lake, maybe it was the Poly, but somewhere near the area. And you could hear that train whistle. And it's like, oh, it brought you back home. There it is, the train whistle. I couldn't even see the train, but it feels so Disney to have that train whistle going.
Oh, absolutely. Depending on, especially your first experience at Walt Disney World, for me, it was Magic Kingdom. So hearing the sounds of the train whistle, in the boat horn, anytime I go now, it captures my attention, and it reminds me of that first time that I went to Disney. And I know that sounds hokey, but it really does. It plays such an important part to me of identifying that experience of where I'm at.
Speaking of a first time kind of back at Disney, we had something that happened to us a few years back in the midst of the pandemic. That was a little bit of a comeback as well, when we were staying at the Poly, and the parks had not been reopened for that long, and most of the Poly was closed. Only the DVC Tower or the DVC Resort area was open. It was our first time staying at the Poly as DVC members there. And, obviously the resorts or the parks weren't staying open as late, so you're spending a little bit more resort time. But one thing that always struck us as a wonderful sound, and now whenever we hear it, it's special to us. And I know some people who don't like it. Again, it's another sound that they don't like. I love it because it makes me think about how amazing it was to get back to Disney during this time when we were kept away for a while, with good reason, but we were. And it's that fairy horn that you can hear when you're out at the Poly, especially when you're down at the DVC end of it, because you're so near Ticket and Transportation and where the ferries are. So just hearing that fairy horn as they were getting ready to take guests to and from the park, it was very special to us that, yes, we're back at Disney, and we couldn't be happier about it.
Yeah, absolutely. Sitting out on the balcony, especially, and just listening for that sound, it was just something that was, I don't know if you want to say reassuring, but just something emotional associated with that sound.
It will always be there with us.
Mm-hmm.
That sound will always be there with us. And it's just a form of transportation. It's just a form of getting you from Ticket and Transportation to Magic Kingdom and back. That boat is just pretty much for that. But there's something about hearing that now because of those moments, those memories, those core memories that you set up that Disney is so special at. That is a core memory for us. So now when we're staying at the Poly and we hear it, I know some people are like, it's too early, it wakes us up. To me, I couldn't be happier when I hear that horn.
Yeah, I mean, it just, it reminds you you're in that bubble. It reminds you you're in a special place. You know that it's transporting other people either to or the park or away from the park to do maybe something else, hopefully. But yeah, it is just so unique to have something like that affect you emotionally.
Sure, absolutely. It has me. Something I never thought would happen, but it does now.
Right.
And now I can't hear it enough. It makes me very, very happy.
Yeah.
So we've talked about getting to the parks. We've talked about going through the parks on these different Disney transport. We can't talk about Disney transportation without the farewell ride away from the parks on your day. However, I talked about, sometimes the transportation being the opening credits to your trip. And yes, a trip away from the park, a trip away from Disney in general can be sad. But in some ways, it can be your closing credits. You can sit there and talk with your family and friends and remember everything that happened to you on that day, on that trip, whatever it might be, and just kind of remember it. And it's your closing credits to your day at Disney or your Disney vacation.
Right. No, that's a good point. I mean, I think that's probably when maybe more people notice some of the special aspects of the transportation because they're just trying to process and absorb it all, every little second left in the park. But, one of the things that I think, because we're talking about transportation, we see the importance of it. It is interesting that transportation is like the bookends of your trip. It starts your feelings of getting excited, and it's what also kind of at the end brings you to the realization that, yes, that part of your experience is over, but it's still something you're reflecting on with, hopefully with love and fun and joy and your memories.
Right. And once again, I'm going to go back to that Disney AC. When you're finishing up that hot day at the parks and there's some nice AC on the bus, on the monorail, whatever it might be. Yeah, it's a pretty good treat. It's a good way to end up finishing out that trip. But mostly, you could be exhausted. It's like going through the most exciting movie you've ever seen or your concert or whatever you want to have your particular form of entertainment. And then at the end of it all, you're just spent. You've used up all this energy, but then you're kind of cruising back and you're just thinking about what a great day we had. I'm done now, but this was amazing. This was an amazing trip. This was an amazing day, whatever it is. And you can live all that on your Disney transportation because if you know for sure.
Yeah, I mean, one other little aspect of that is again, especially at night where the recording is talking about, have a safe drive home if that's where you're going or whatever. It's not a bland experience. It's still something that is genuinely giving you some enjoyment.
And once again, cast members make that too.
True.
And they are there to kind of help ease that sorrow of leaving your Disney day and move you on to your next transportation and hopefully your next Disney transportation to the parks. Now, I believe you have some fun facts for us about Disney transportation, Michelle,
I have a couple
because
of things.
What would one of these be without Michelle Fun Facts? Because she has the best fun facts.
Well, I don't
If you know, you know.
Well, I don't know. But anyways, a couple things that I thought would be, interesting. And one is what you may not know, but if you know, is there are actually Walt Disney World Transportation trading cards that they have for the different forms of transportation. And you can't purchase them, and they're not always available, but sometimes you might get doused with some pixie dust and just happen to get a trading card. I was fortunate to get one once. I was waiting for a bus from Epcot to go to the resorts, and I don't remember what happened, but there was a delay. I think there was supposed to be a bus picking us up and had a problem, so we were waiting for another one to get, I guess, reassigned to pick up people to go to their resort from Epcot in that particular resort. And it was, you could tell people were starting to get anxious because it was, like, I think they tell you 20 minutes and some of us were there way more than 20 minutes. Well, one of the Disney transportation people came and just started talking to people in the queue and, trying to ask people how their day was and what they were going to do next and things like that. And then he started doing some trivia questions, and I happened to answer one of the trivia questions, and he awarded me with the trading card. So it's very special. I've kept it, typically they have it, they have, from what I'm understanding, from what he told me, is earlier in the day, they usually have more than at the end of the day. They do try to just really focus on kids. You won't see them generally going on a bus or something and just handing them to everybody. They are generally discreet and maybe talk to a party with a family maybe that have multiple kids and then give them that. So you can ask, but you might not be giving them if you're just asking. But like I said, sometimes pixie dust just happens and you get a trading card.
It's definitely an if you know thing, that's for sure. And yeah, they are not just the buses. They are on various forms of the boats,
yeah.
The monorail. There are various forms of transportation. Yeah, it can't hurt to ask. You never know. It's always, as long as you're cool about it. If you don't get one, don't be upset. It doesn't happen to everybody, but it doesn't hurt to ask. And yeah, if you have kids around, it's a special treat for them as well.
Yeah, definitely. The other fun fact is just in terms of how the Disney company has been very much aware of the need for authenticity and maintaining history in their forms of transportation. So for example, the trains at Walt Disney World, and they learned this from what they did at Disneyland where they were creating their own. But they actually purchased trains that were made. These were steam engine trains made, in the early part of the 1900s. And they just, kind of adjusted them to fit what they did. But they are actual steam engines. I mean, recently we can attest to that.
Yeah. So if you stop over at the Fantasyland station over there, there's a big water tower there, and which seems like it's decorative. Like, okay, yeah, that's would be something you would see at a train station, of course. But we actually did see them actually loading the train with more water to be able to create that steam that helps power them around the park. And that it is actually a functional water tower to pump the water into these steam engines.
Right. So, I mean, considering Walt's love of trains and the history of trains was something that what he found very intriguing, to see that still at the parks now is just so wonderful, and the same thing for the cars on Main Street and how they were created and designed to be very authentic. That really, again, helps support this whole experience. It's just very, very great and more unique of a transportation experience.
Yeah. It's just one more thing to appreciate when you're out there at the parks and seeing how these are so perfectly done and fit into where they're supposed to be within the parks and their theming and everything else in the parks and outside of the parks as well. They're just really, really well done. And we can't talk about all that or close out a tribute to Disney transportation without also doing a tribute to a very special Imagineering. If you know about a certain someone, right, Michelle?
Right. Bob Gurr. He is the man who holds the most significant responsibility for the vehicles of Disney parks, not just the transportation ones, but even ones for attractions. And he was involved with so many aspects. He invented things, he renovated, he was called in to troubleshoot if there was problems. He really was the master, and he rightfully and deservedly is a Disney legend.
So deservedly.
Yeah. He developed more than 100 designs for attractions, ranging everything from Autopia and the Matterhorn bobsleds to the antique cars, the double-decker buses, as I mentioned, on Main Street, USA, at Disneyland and Walt Disney World with designing the monorails. When they first looked at monorails and wanted to have one at Disneyland, he said something like it's a bread box on a a plank
The
or
old
something.
school monorail, yeah.
Yeah, and knowing that it had to have a sleeker, more modern look. One to be more aerodynamic, but also to go along with the theming that they wanted to use. But it's still wonderful when you can see him interviewed. We've seen some things recently where he talks about his unique experiences, but he's been involved even as recently as with Tokyo Disney Sea. So, I mean, he's still been somebody who's contributed even in recent times to transportation. And like you said, we definitely needed to acknowledge that.
Yeah. Bob Gurr is an absolute treasure. And somebody there's hardly ever been anybody more deserving of the term Disney legend than Bob Gurr. And how many things that he's had his hands in creating that you may not even notice, but they make your Disney day that much more special. And a lot of them involve Disney transportation. So, I'm just going to say right here, thank you, Bob Gurr. You may never hear this, but thank you so much for making our Disney vacations, our Disney trips, our just Disney in general so special. You are an amazing human being.
Exactly. Somebody whose work touches you from the start of your vacation all the way to the end.
Yes. And if you know. So that is our look at Disney transportation. If you know. We'd love to hear your thoughts on Disney transportation. I mean, I know that there's so many aspects of it that we couldn't have possibly touched on everything that you love. Are there any special moments that make you think, more or more magical about Disney because of some of the transportation? What makes it special for you? Please hit us up, social media, Gmail account, whatever it is, because if you know, and that includes Disney transportation. Really digging this new series, the If You Know, You Know series. I think it's a lot of fun. Michelle came up with it. Of course, she comes up with the best ideas and really having fun with this. And it's just our first couple. And there's so many more things we're going to hit over the next several months, years, whatever it might be.
Yeah, it's definitely a series that it's easy to add a lot of different topics to it. If you look at our calendar, honey, I filled it up with a lot of these.
There's an empty spot. It must be an If You Know, You Know.
Anyways, it's also fun to highlight more of those special gems that don't get a lot of attention.
Yeah. So, and we always want your input on it too. And if there's something you want us to, focus on, if there's an If You Know area of Disney that you want us to take a look at and discuss on the show, let us know. And also, of course, your If You Know segments from the stuff we talk about as well.
Very good. Yes.
Very good. All right. Before we get to the Disney stories of the week, we need to talk about this really great guy. Of course, I'm talking about my great friend Nate with Main Street and More Travel, because let's face it, we all have trips we're thinking about taking in the very near future. Well, if you do, whether it be to Walt Disney World, Disneyland, Disney Cruise, or anywhere in the world beyond, let me tell you, Nate is the certified Disney vacation planner that you are going to want to get in contact with.
Oh my gosh, for sure. As we, mention all the time, he really has firsthand knowledge of things, so he can really help you plan, customize a trip that is going to be the best for you, answer your questions. It's really concierge level planning that doesn't cost you anything.
High end. It is high end stuff that he will help you out with, answer all your questions. He is there for you to make sure your trip, wherever it may be the best it possibly can be. And as Michelle mentioned, no extra cost to you. That's because either Disney or whatever other travel branch that he works through pays him for you. What you end up paying is exactly what you pay if you did all that work yourself. Only you can save that time and just relax and enjoy and let him set it all up for you.
Right. And you know what? He may even be able to save you some money from you doing it alone, because he is on top of all the deals and steals that are out there.
Yeah. And there's never a guarantee, but let me tell you, if there's a discount out there, Nate will find it for you. So what you got to do is go to DizTripsAndMore.com, fill out the form there, and just contact him, talk to him, tell him what you want to do, and let him get to work for you.
Right. So as Tom mentioned, once you fill out that form, Nate will be back in touch with you to start that planning, but be sure to tell him that Tom and Michelle sent you.
Yeah. Again, that's Nate with Main Street and More Travel. And Nate would be great at helping you book some of these things that we're going to be talking about in our Disney Stories of the Week. And I'm going to start with, well, there is a fantastic new deal that just became available for you on Disney Cruise Line if you're planning on sailing with maybe a few extra family members or some friends within the next few months. This came straight from the Disney Cruise Line website. They said, set sail on select Disney Cruise Line sailings and discover the magic of togetherness. And now, for a limited time, third and fourth guests in the same stateroom can join the adventure for 50% off on select sailings.
That's really an amazing deal. I mean, that is something, whether you just have a third or four, or both third and fourth people, that can really save you some money.
Absolutely. You should definitely look into it. It's available for select sailings on the Disney Magic, the Disney Wonder, Disney Dream, and Disney Fantasy, and the Disney Wish as well, between October 3rd of this year and going all the way to March 30th of 2026. Now, it must be booked by October 12th of 2025 to take advantage of this. And again, this is pertaining to the other guests in your cabin. Once you have your first two and then the third and fourth, usually children, most likely on a Disney cruise, but you never know. You can bring adult, you can have a whole girls trip, whatever. It could be anything. It could be all family in there. And that counts for them as well. So definitely you might want to take advantage of that. And it's not restricted to new bookings. If you've already booked the cruise and you've not made your final payment yet, you can reach out to Disney, or you can reach out to your certified Disney vacation planner, just like Nate, and ask them, hey, would this save us some money? And they'll look into it, and you can take advantage of that.
That's so great. That really is awesome. Awesome deal.
And that's over most of the ships. I mean, that's almost the entire fleet. It's just, not the Treasure and obviously the Destiny and the Adventure. Right. They're just debuting this year, but that's, and it's not every single sailing, but there's a lot of them.
Right.
It's a lot of them. So take a look at that, and it might help you out on your next cruise vacation. Then after you save that money on those third and fourth guests in your stateroom, well, now there is a new way to spend that money on a bit of luxury on your Disney cruise.
Do tell.
Yes. So this came from DisneyCruiseLineBlog.com. They're not affiliated with Disney Cruise Line, but they do a great job of kind of getting Disney Cruise Line news out there and itineraries and various different things about Disney Cruise Line. You should check out that website if you're interested in a Disney cruise at some point, for sure. Anyway, they said on July 30th, Disney Cruise Line opened bookings for Mickey and Minnie Cove Cabanas at Disney Castaway Cay for sale. Did I say Castaway Cay? Castaway Key. It's like I'm Ron Burgundy.
Yeah.
Just put it in front of me and I'll read it. Castaway Cay for sailings beginning December 5th, 2025. The new area that has been under construction for months will feature 30 cabanas, one of which will be a grand cabana. These, just like the other cabanas, will be subject to availability, of course, based on your onboard booking window for concierge guests and Castaway Club level. So usually most of the cabanas end up going to the concierge guests. Occasionally it's Pearl. Sometimes they fall to Platinum, but usually that's where the kind of cutoff is. But you never know. Always keep checking back, because sometimes people book them and they're like, do we really need this? And they cancel them and they pop up. Anyway, each of the 29 well-appointed cabanas is furnished with comfortable seating, a refrigerator for beverages, a safe, a ceiling fan, plush towels, cool face cloths, and sunscreen. Outside on the patio, you can unwind under a sailcloth shade in chaise lounge chairs, be refreshed by a freshwater shower, and relax in a hammock while taking in the spectacular views. And also fresh fruit and snacks are included, along with complimentary bottled water and soft drinks. You also get dedicated beverage service provided, and alcoholic beverage packages are available for purchase on board at an additional cost. Each cabana includes the use of snorkeling equipment, float or tube, sand toys, and 1 hour bike rental per guest. Now, it's not cheap. It's not cheap. Price of the family cabanas is $935 for up to 6 guests, and with $56 per guest on addition to that, up to 10. On the regular family cabanas, you can fit up to 10 people. Now, there is that one grand cabana. That is the cost of that one. It has the same amenities, but it's larger, obviously. That is $1,320 for up to 12 guests, with $56 each per each additional guest, up to 16. So actually, if you can't book that one and you have that many friends with you that want to come along, that breaks that down much more manageably.
Right.
Not that any like $1,300 plus,
Right.
$56 per guest is manageable by most standards. But if you break that down and everybody's paying their share, that's not bad.
Yeah.
For a grand cabana, that's pretty cool.
Right. Yeah. I could see that, especially for people who are getting married on the cruise or vow renewals or other kinds of celebrations. You might have that many people who are sailing with you that you could do it.
Yeah. So again, they're adding these. So, it's the one thing about the cabanas is, and we just mentioned it, that they always go to the concierge and sometimes to Pearl and then occasionally to Platinum. And then maybe you might luck into one if you're looking at the right time. So, but they're hard to get. So the addition of 30 new ones is going to be beneficial to having that opportunity to maybe, if you do want to, yes, that's a lot of money.
Right.
That is a lot of money. But if you do want to splurge, maybe it's a once in a lifetime vacation, like Michelle was mentioning, a wedding, a honeymoon, anything like that. Maybe you want to jump on that. And the fact that there may be a little bit more availability is a nice thing.
Yeah. I think it's really pretty exciting.
Yeah. So that's cool.
Ooh.
We will be booking a cabana at some point. I don't know if it's going to be one of those. Unless we have some friends with us and we can get them to pony up some dough as well, then maybe so. We always are looking for more of the Serenity Bay ones, which are a little bit more mellow. You don't get quite as many amenities, but they're a little bit more mellow in price.
Right.
Those were the ones that we would like to book. But again, we're not in concierge very much anymore,
right?
Like we used to be. We don't get that opportunity, but you never know. Michelle will be Pearl here in just a couple more cruises.
Right.
So maybe after that we might see
have
some
a chance.
ability.
Yeah.
We'll see. Anyway, so that's it for the Disney stories of the week. However, we never leave you without giving you some sort of tip that might help you on your next vacation. And when we do this, of course, we start with Michelle because she's amazing. She's fantastic. She does the best job of booking those Run Disney races on her phone. She also does the best research. But one thing is for very certain, she always has the very best tips. So let's get to it. Here's Michelle's tip of the week.
Well, thank you, sweetie. My tip, really, this is for our UK listeners. And if you're planning to visit Walt Disney World and you're kind of interested in booking what they call the Enchanted Extras, so that's like the Magic Kingdom fireworks dessert party, a bippity boppity boutique, those kind of things. From the UK, it's really not available to book online on the Walt Disney World website. However, what you can do is using your My Disney Experience app, go to the Chat With Us feature, and their reservations can be made at U.S. time starting at 6 a.m., 60 days in advance. You can do the Chat with us and make your reservation that way. So what it is you just go to the My Disney app, find that stacked hamburger symbol at the bottom right corner of the home screen, and then scroll down and you'll find it. But yeah, that's a way you can book in advance one of those Enchanted Extras if you're from the UK.
Very nice. Yeah, we have a lot of our UK friends. I know there's some that from the wafflers from the Great British Mickey Waffle. They're just getting set to be here over within a few weeks.
Right.
Trying to figure out how we can maybe go out and visit them and say hi to them in person, because we've been lucky enough to talk with them on their show, looking to try and have them on our show, but we'd also love to meet with them in person. But yeah, Sue in the UK,
right.
We have other great UK listeners.
Yes.
So yeah, that's something to definitely take advantage of for sure. So that's amazing. Michelle's tip, always the best tip. My tip, look, it's the same thing I talk about whenever there's great deals on anything. It could be resort stays at Disney. It can be Disney Cruise Line bookings, whatever it might be. Remember, book early is always my suggestion, because oftentimes that is the lowest price, but also because you can change when these great deals come down. You have that ability. Even though you've booked early, it doesn't mean you're locked into that price. If they come up with a great discount or whatever it might be, bonus on top of sailing on there, you can take advantage of that right up to your actual final payment date and change at any time without any penalty, without any problems. You can do that. And so don't worry about booking early, because you can always adjust and be thinking, oh no, is this going to be the best price when it's all said and done? It's not like the airlines. You're not locked in.
Right.
You can book, you can change it. And the same goes for your Disney resort stays and everything else. So book early, check back often. And if you have a certified Disney vacation planner, that's what they're there to do, is make sure and keep checking on those things and help you out in that situation.
Exactly.
Yeah. So
good tip, honey.
Yeah, not really. Your tip was great. My tip was just fine. So that's it for this week's show. Next week, well, we talked about it already. We are going to be aboard a Disney cruise, but not just a regular Disney cruise. We are going to be aboard our first ever Disney Vacation Club member cruise. And we're going to be sharing all the details of the interesting experiences, because I don't know if you know about these cruises, but a lot of cool stuff happens during them. And we'll be talking all about it on our next episode next week.
Yeah, we're very anxious to share all the deets on that.
Yeah, we're very interested to find out all the deets.
Yeah, it's true.
As a matter of fact, we hear little things, we see little things, we know a few things that are going to be happening, but we definitely do not know everything. And so we're very, very excited to find out all about it and share that with you. And if you're thinking, if you ever thought about going on a member cruise in the future, what it would be like, and if you can figure out if that would be something that you would want to look into, because they have these things every single year. And we've been very jealous because we've not been able to do one to this point, but now it's finally happening, and we're extremely excited if you can't hear it in my voice.
Definitely. I am the same way. I am just so ready. I think it's good that I still have a lot of things to get ready, because that's what's helped keeping the pace going.
Yes. That's why we're recording early.
Yes.
We still have a lot of things to do to get ready for this cruise. So let's get to it. Thank you for joining us today. In the future, you can find us most everywhere you get podcasts. However, the very best place to find us is on our own website, HyperionAdventurespodcast.com. Also, we're on social media. We are on hashtag always Twitter and Blue Sky at Hyperion Podcast, Facebook, Instagram, and Threads at Hyperion Adventures Podcast. If you are on Facebook, why don't you come on over and join us for some good, positive Disney energy fun on our Hyperion Adventurers Facebook group. Also, we are on YouTube, and Michelle's been joining me regularly for our live morning show we do virtually every morning on YouTube. If you want to find us there, we're at Hyperion Adventures Podcast. And if you ever want to contact us for any reason, please hit us up at our Gmail account, HyperionAdventuresPodcast@gmail.com.
And you know what? If you like and appreciate this podcast, which we really hope you do, we would love for you to share that information with relatives, family, friends, whatever, and get the word out about us.
Yep. Word of mouth is the best way to get notice that this podcast exists and that it's something that other people might like. As I said before, just like the old commercial, they tell two friends, and then they tell two friends, and so on, and so on, and so on. And before you know it, we have this gigantic Hyperion Adventurer family, and that's what we really want to do. And thank you for being a part of this Hyperion Adventurer family. And thank you for listening to another episode of the Hyperion Adventures podcast. We look forward to sharing some time with you again next week after that cruise. Until that time, I'm Tom.
I'm Michelle.
And we hope that you have a magical week.
Bye.